The escape pod was cold and dark. Commander Helen Marsh floated inside it, watching the oxygen counter slowly go down. 12 hours. That was all she had left. After that, she would die alone in the endless black of space, thought 3 days ago. Her cargo ship Endurance had been full of life. 20 crew members. Good people. Friends. Now they were all gone, taken by the Corvus slavers who had appeared out of nowhere and torn her ship apart. Helen had managed to reach the escape pod just before the Endurance exploded. She was the only one who got away. The Corvus were monsters. Everyone in human space knew about them, though few had seen them and lived to tell the story. They were tall creatures with gray skin and 4 arms. They crossed the galaxy looking for slaves to sell in their markets. They did not care about pain or suffering. To them, other beings were just things to be bought and sold. Helen pressed her hands against the small window of her pod. Outside, she could see millions of stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, her home. Her mother and father were probably sitting down for dinner right now, not knowing their daughter was dying in the cold darkness of space. She closed her eyes and tried to stay calm. Panic would only make her use oxygen faster. She had to think. She had to find a way to survive. But there was nothing she could do. The pod had no engine. The radio was broken. She was just floating, waiting for the end. Hours passed. Helen drifted in and out of sleep. In her dreams, she was back home, walking through the streets of her small town. She could smell fresh bread from the bakery. She could hear children laughing in the park. Then she would wake up and remember where she was, and the pain would hit her all over again. When the oxygen counter showed only 4 hours left, something changed. A shadow fell over the pod. Helen opened her eyes and saw a massive ship blocking out the stars. For one terrible moment, she thought the Corvus had come back to take her. But this ship was different. It was smooth and white, shaped like a great bird with its wings spread wide. A blue light surrounded her pod, and she felt herself being pulled toward the ship. Helen grabbed the walls of her pod, her heart beating fast. She did not know if she should be afraid or hopeful. Either way, there was nothing she could do but wait. The pod was brought inside a large hangar. When the door opened, Helen saw creatures she had never seen before. They were tall and thin, covered in soft feathers of blue and silver. Their faces were kind, with large dark eyes that seemed full of warmth. They walked toward her slowly, making gentle sounds that her translator could not understand at first. One of them, older than the others with white feathers around its face, came forward and knelt beside her. It took a moment, but then the words came through her translator. "Do not be afraid, lost one. You are safe now. We are the Valori." Helen tried to speak, but she was too weak. The cold and the fear and the lack of oxygen had taken everything from her. She felt herself falling, and then strong but gentle arms caught her. When she woke up, she was lying on a soft bed in a room filled with warm light. The air smelled sweet, like flowers after rain. A young Valori sat beside her, watching her with curious eyes. "You are awake," the creature said. "I am Kira. I have been taking care of you." Helen looked around the room. Everything was smooth and clean. There were no sharp edges, no cold metal. It felt like being inside a dream. "Where am I?" she asked. "You are on our ship," Kira said. "We found you drifting near our territory. You were almost dead. We brought you here and healed you." Helen sat up slowly. Her body ached, but she was alive. She was actually alive. "Why?" she asked. "You do not know me. Why did you save me?" Kira tilted her head, as if the question confused her. "You were dying. We cannot leave you to die. That is not who we are." Over the next few days, Helen learned more about the Valori. They were a peaceful people who had lived in this part of space for thousands of years. They did not fight wars or conquer worlds. They believed in kindness and harmony above all things. The elder who had first spoken to her was named Saranis. He was the leader of their council, and he came to visit Helen often. He asked her about humans, about Earth, about her life before the attack. Helen told him everything. She told him about her family, her friends, her dreams. She told him about the beauty of sunsets on Earth and the sound of ocean waves. The Valori listened to her stories with wonder. They had never met a human before. They found it strange and beautiful that humans could feel so many different things so deeply. They laughed when Helen laughed. They grew quiet when she cried. Helen stayed with the Valori for 3 months. In that time, she became close to Kira, who was training to be a healer. Kira was young and full of questions. She wanted to know everything about humans. Why did they fight? Why did they love? Why did they keep going even when things seemed hopeless? Helen did not have all the answers, but she tried her best. She explained that humans were complicated. They could be cruel, but they could also be kind. They made mistakes, but they also tried to make things right. And above all, they never gave up. No matter how dark things got, humans always found a way to keep going. Saranis often sat with them, listening quietly. He seemed troubled, though he tried to hide it. One day, he finally told Helen the truth. "The Corvith know you are here," he said. "They have sent a message to us. They want us to give you to them." Helen felt her heart go cold. "What did you tell them?" Saranis looked at her with those kind, dark eyes. "We told them no." Helen stared at him. "But they will come for you. They will destroy your people." The old Valori nodded slowly. "Yes, they probably will. Then why?" Helen asked, her voice shaking. "Why would you risk everything for me? I am just one person. I am not worth the lives of your entire people. I am not worth the Saranis reached out and took her hand. His feathers were soft and warm. "You are not just one person. Helen, you are a life. A soul. A being who feels and dreams and hopes. The Corvith want us to believe that some lives are worth less than others. But we do not believe that. We cannot believe that. If we give you to them, we lose more than just you. We lose ourselves." Helen felt tears running down her face. She had never known such kindness. She had never imagined that strangers from another world would risk everything to save her. Outside the ship, the Corvith fleet was gathering. War was coming, and Helen knew that everything was about to change. The message traveled across the stars for 17 days. It passed through empty space, around dead moons, and through clouds of cosmic dust. It was weak and broken, barely more than a whisper in the great silence of the universe. But it reached its destination, on Earth. In the deep underground bunker of United Earth Command, a young officer named Danny Blake was working late. He was tired and hungry, and he wanted nothing more than to go home and sleep. But something on his screen made him stop. A signal. Faint but clear. He ran the numbers 3 times to make sure he was not making a mistake. Then he called his commander. Within an hour, Admiral Frank Peters was standing in the control room, staring at the same screen. He was an old man with gray hair and hard eyes. He had fought in 3 wars and lost more friends than he could count. He did not show emotion easily. But when he heard the message, something changed in his face. The voice was weak and full of static, but the words were clear enough. "This is Commander Helen Marsh of the cargo vessel Endurance. I am being held in Valori space. The Corvith attacked my ship and killed my crew. The Valori saved me. They are protecting me. The Corvith are coming for them. Please help. They protected me." The room was silent. Peters played the message again and again. Each time, those 3 words hit him like a punch to the chest. They protected me. For years, Earth had heard rumors about the Corvus. Ships had gone missing. Colonists had vanished. There were whispers of slave markets on distant worlds where humans were bought and sold like animals. But there had never been proof. There had never been a survivor to tell the story, until now. Peters turned to Danny. Where did this come from? Danny pointed to a region on the star map that was mostly empty. Out here, sir. Beyond the edge of our explored space. We call it the Outer Rim. Nobody goes there. Somebody did, Peter said. And somebody saved her. He stared at the map for a long time. Then he made his decision. Call the council. Wake them up if you have to. Tell them we are going to war. The news spread across Earth like fire. Commander Helen Marsh was alive. She had been saved by aliens. And she was in danger. People gathered in the streets, watching the news on giant screens. They did not know who the Valori were, but they knew one thing. These creatures had risked everything to save a human life. The reaction was overwhelming. Volunteers flooded military offices, wanting to join the rescue mission. Workers in shipyards promised to work day and night. Scientists offered their latest weapons and technology. For the first time in many years, humanity was united. Admiral Peters spoke to the world from the steps of United Earth Command. His voice was calm but filled with power. We've received a message from one of our own, he said. Commander Helen Marsh was attacked by the Corvus and left to die. But she did not die. She was saved by a species called the Valori. These beings, who did not know her, who had nothing to gain, chose to protect her. They chose to stand against an empire of slavers. They chose kindness over fear. He paused, letting the words sink in. The Corvus have taken our people. They have hunted us. They have sold us like things. For too long we did nothing because we did not have proof. Now we have proof. Now we have a survivor. And now we have allies who are facing destruction because they refuse to give. Up one human life. His eyes seemed to look at every person watching. We will not abandon Commander Marsh. We will not forget the Valori. And we will not rest until every human taken by the Corvus is brought home. This is not a choice. This is who we are. The roar of approval could be heard for miles. In the weeks that followed, the greatest fleet in human history was assembled. Ships came from Earth, from Mars, from the colonies on the moons of Jupiter and Saturn. The carrier Resolute, the largest ship ever built, would lead the fleet. Behind it came the battleship Iron Will, along with dozens of cruisers and destroyers. Danny Blake was promoted to tactical officer and assigned to the Resolute. He spent every waking hour studying the star maps, looking for the best route to Valori space. The journey would take months, and there was no guarantee they would arrive in time. But they had to try. Commander Elisa Morgan was chosen to lead the fighter squadrons. She was the best pilot in the fleet, known for her skill and her bravery. She had never lost a battle. When she heard about the mission, she did not hesitate. These Valori saved one of us, she said to her pilots. That makes them family. And we do not leave family behind. Meanwhile, far across the galaxy, Helen Marsh knew nothing of what was happening on Earth. She stood on the surface of the Valori homeworld, looking up at the sky. Dark shapes had appeared among the stars. The Corvus fleet had arrived. Elder Serrani stood beside her, his feathers trembling in the wind. They are here, he said quietly. Helen felt sick with guilt. This is my fault. If you had just given me to them, your people would be safe. Serrani shook his head. If we had given you to them, we would no longer be the Valori. We would be something else. Something less. Kira joined them, carrying a bag filled with medical supplies. The shelters are ready, she said. We have done everything we can. Helen looked at her friend. Kira was young, barely an adult by Valori standards. She should have been living a peaceful life, learning to heal, falling in love, raising a family. Instead, she was preparing for war. "I am sorry," Helen whispered. "I am so sorry." Kira took her hand. "Do not be sorry. Be strong. That is what humans do, is it not? You told me that your people never give up, that you always keep fighting, no matter how dark things get." Helen nodded slowly. She had said those words. She had believed them. But now, faced with the reality of what was coming, she was not sure she could live up to them. The Corvus ships moved closer. Their commander, a brutal warlord named Zeth, sent a final message to the planet. "You have chosen death," his voice said through the speakers. "You had the chance to give us the human and save yourselves. You refused. Now you will watch as we take everything from you. Every man, woman, and child will be dragged from this world and sold in our markets. And the human you protected will be made to watch before she joins them." Saranis responded with a calmness that surprised even Helen. "We do not answer to you. We do not fear you. And we will not give up one innocent life to save ourselves. Do your worst, Corvus. We will face it with our heads held high." The transmission ended. The silence that followed was heavy. Helen looked up at the dark shapes in the sky and made a decision. If she was going to die, she would die fighting. She would make the Valori proud. She would show them that their sacrifice was not in vain. She did not know that millions of miles away, 200 human warships were racing toward her. She did not know that her message had reached Earth. She did not know that her people were coming, but she would find out soon enough. The shipyards of Earth had never worked so hard. Day and night, workers welded metal, installed weapons, and loaded supplies. The air was filled with the sound of machines and the shouts of crew leaders pushing their teams to work faster. Time was running out. Admiral Frank Peters walked through the main hangar of the Resolute, watching his crew prepare for the long journey ahead. These men and women had left their families, their homes, everything they knew, to fight for people they had never met. He felt a deep pride in them. Danny Blake met him at the bridge, holding a tablet filled with data. "Admiral, we have plotted the fastest route to Valori space. It will take us 3 months at maximum speed." Peters nodded. 3 months is too long. Those people are facing destruction right now. "I know, sir. But our engines can only go so fast. We are pushing them to their limits already." The Admiral looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, a woman he had never met was waiting for rescue. Somewhere out there, an entire species was facing death because they had chosen to do the right thing. "Then we push them past their limits," Peters said. "Find a way, Lieutenant." "That is an order." Danny saluted and hurried away. He would find a way. He always did. In another part of the ship, Commander Lisa Morgan was addressing her pilots. There were nearly 300 of them, the best fighters Earth had to offer. They sat in rows, listening to her every word. "I am not going to lie to you," Lisa said. "This mission is dangerous. The Corvus are not like any enemy we have faced before. They are cruel and ruthless. They do not take prisoners unless they plan to sell them. If you are captured, you will wish you were dead." The room was silent. Lisa let the words sink in before continuing. "But I am also going to tell you something else. Out there, in a corner of space we have never seen, is a species called the Valori. They found one of our people floating in an escape pod. They could have ignored her. They could have let her die. But they saved her. They brought her into their homes and treated her like family. And when the Corvus told them to hand her over, they refused." She paused, her eyes moving across the faces of her pilots. They refused. They chose to die rather than give up one human life. Think about that. Think about what that means. These beings do not know us. They have nothing to gain by protecting us. But they did it anyway because they believed it was right. A young pilot in the front row raised his hand. "Commander, what if we do not make it in time?" Lisa looked at him for a long moment. "Then we make sure the Corvith pay for every life they take. We make them regret ever touching our people. And we make sure the galaxy knows that humanity does not forget." The pilots nodded. They understood. This was not just a rescue mission. This was a statement. This was humanity telling the universe who they were. Meanwhile, far across the stars, the Valori homeworld was preparing for the worst. The skies were dark with Corvith ships. Hundreds of them hung in orbit like vultures, waiting for their prey to die. Helen Marsh stood in the council chamber with Elder Soranes and the other leaders. They were discussing evacuation plans, but everyone knew the truth. There was nowhere to go. The Corvith had surrounded the planet completely. No ships could escape. "We have sent our children to the deep caves," Soranes said. "They will be safe there for a time. But if the Corvith land their forces, nothing will stop them." Helen clenched her fists. "Then we fight. We make them pay for every step they take on your world." One of the other elders shook his head. "We are not warriors. We do not know how to fight." "Then I will teach you," Helen said. "I spent 10 years in the Earth military before I became a cargo pilot. I know how to defend a position. I know how to set traps. I know how to make an enemy suffer." The elders looked at each other uncertainly. Violence was against their nature. They had lived in peace for generations. The idea of fighting back was strange and frightening to them. But Kira stepped forward. "She is right. We cannot simply wait to die. If we must fall, let us fall standing. Let us show the Corvith that the Valori are not weak. Let us give them something to remember." Slowly, other voices joined hers. Young Valori who were tired of being afraid. Mothers who wanted to protect their children. Elders who refused to let their legacy be one of surrender. The chamber filled with agreement. Soranes raised his hand for silence. His old eyes were filled with tears, but his voice was strong. "Very well. If this is our end, we will face it with courage. Helen Marsh, you will lead our defense. May your human strength guide us through the darkness ahead." Helen nodded. She had never wanted to be a soldier again. She had left that life behind after seeing too much death. But now, surrounded by these gentle creatures who had saved her life, she found a new purpose. Over the next few days, she trained the Valori as best she could. They were not natural fighters, but they were smart and quick. She taught them how to build barricades, how to create simple weapons, how to move without being seen. She taught them that courage was not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it. Kira became her second in command. The young healer had a talent for organizing and inspiring others. She moved through the shelters, giving hope to the frightened and strength to the weak. At night, Helen and Kira would sit together on a hill overlooking the city. They would watch the Corvith ships in the sky and talk about everything and nothing. "Tell me about Earth," Kira said one evening. "Tell me about your home." Helen smiled sadly. "It is beautiful. There are great oceans that stretch to the horizon. Mountains covered in snow. Forests so thick you can walk for days and never see the sun. And the people. The people are complicated. We fight and argue and hurt each other. But we also love. We create art and music. We build things that last for centuries. We dream of things we cannot even understand." Kira was quiet for a moment. "I would like to see it someday." Helen took her friend's hand. "You will. I promise." Above them, a Corvith ship broke formation and began its descent toward the planet. The invasion had begun. Helen stood up, her heart pounding. "Get everyone to their positions. This is it." Kira nodded and ran toward the city. Helen watched her go, then turned to face the sky. The ship was getting closer. She could see others following it. Dozens of them, carrying thousands of soldiers. She thought about Earth. She thought about her family. She thought about all the things she had wanted to do with her life. Then she pushed those thoughts away and focused on the present. The Valori were counting on her, and she would not let them down. She did not know that at that very moment, 200 human warships were emerging from hyperspace on the edge of the system. She did not know that Admiral Peters was already giving the order to attack. She did not know that help had finally arrived. All she knew was that she had to hold on just a little longer. And holding on was something humans did better than anyone. The human fleet came out of hyperspace like thunder from a clear sky. 200 warships appeared in perfect formation, their weapons already powered and ready. The Resolute led the way, its massive hull blocking out the stars behind it. Commander Zeth was in the middle of watching his troops land on the Valori homeworld when his officers started screaming. Alarms filled the bridge of his flagship. Sensors were going wild. "What is happening?" he demanded. "Ships, Commander." Many ships. They came from nowhere. Zeth looked at the display and felt something he had not felt in a very long time. Fear. The human fleet was larger than anything he had expected. He had heard stories about humans, of course. Small creatures with soft bodies and short lives. They were supposed to be easy prey. His scouts had reported only a few human settlements scattered across distant worlds. Nothing that could threaten the Corvith Dominion Dawn. But this was something else entirely. Admiral Frank Peters opened a communication channel that broadcast on all frequencies. His voice was calm and steady, the voice of a man who knew exactly what he was doing. "Attention, Corvith Fleet. This is Admiral Frank Peters of the United Earth Navy. You have taken our people. You have threatened our friends. You have made a very serious mistake. I am here to correct it." Zeth laughed, though there was no humor in his voice. "You are fools. Do you know who we are? We have conquered 100 worlds. We have crushed species far more powerful than yours. Your little fleet means nothing." Peters did not respond to the insult. "You have one chance. Release all human prisoners. Leave this system. Never return. Do this, and you may survive today. And if I refuse—" Peters paused. When he spoke again, his voice was colder than space itself. "Then we will show you why humans are not to be hunted." Zeth ended the communication and gave the order to attack. He believed his own words. He believed the Corvith were unstoppable. He was about to learn how wrong he was. The battle began with a wave of human fighters launching from the Resolute. Commander Lisa Morgan was at the front, her ship cutting through space like an arrow. Behind her came 300 pilots, all of them ready to die for their mission. "All squadrons, follow my lead," Lisa commanded. "Target their command ships first. Cut off the head and the body will fall." The Corvith fighters rose to meet them. They were fast and deadly, but the human pilots were better trained. Lisa had spent months preparing for this moment. She knew every weakness of the enemy ships. She knew exactly where to hit them. The first Corvith fighter exploded in front of her. Then another. And another. A squadron tore through the enemy formation like a knife through paper. On the Resolute, Danny Blake coordinated the larger ships. His screens were filled with data, tracking every movement, every shot, every casualty. He had never felt so alive. Battleship Iron Will moved to Sector 7 and provide cover fire. Cruiser Group 3, target the troop transports. Do not let them land more soldiers on that planet. The human ships followed his orders perfectly. The Iron Will turned its massive guns toward the Corvith fleet and opened fire. Beams of light crossed the darkness, punching holes through enemy hulls. Corvith ships began to burn. On the planet below, Helen Marsh heard the explosions in the sky. She looked up, and saw something she could not believe. Human ships. Dozens of them. Hundreds of them. They had come for her. They came, she whispered. They actually came. Kira ran to her side, her feathers shaking with excitement. Helen, what is happening? Helen felt tears running down her face. My people. They found my message. They came to save us. The Valori around them began to cheer. They did not fully understand what was happening, but they knew one thing. They were no longer alone. In orbit, the battle grew more intense. Zeth threw everything he had at the human fleet, but nothing worked. For every ship the Corvith destroyed, the humans destroyed 10 more. The formation that had seemed so powerful an hour ago was falling apart. Lisa Morgan pushed her fighter to its limits. She flew directly toward Zeth's flagship, dodging weapons fire and debris. Her target was the command bridge. Commander, that is suicide, one of her pilots shouted. Their shields are too strong. Then we hit them harder, Lisa replied. All ships, concentrate fire on my target. Bring those shields down. Every fighter in her squadron turned toward the flagship. They fired together, a storm of energy that lit up the darkness. The shields flickered once, twice, then collapsed. Lisa did not hesitate. She flew straight at the bridge, her weapons firing continuously. The glass shattered. The metal tore apart. She pulled up at the last second, flying through the explosion she had created. Behind her, the flagship began to spin out of control. Zeth was dead, killed by a human no larger than his arm. His crew tried to regain control, but it was too late. The ship crashed into one of its own cruisers, and both vessels exploded in a ball of fire. Target destroyed, Lisa reported, her voice showing no emotion. Moving to secondary objectives. Admiral Peters watched the battle from the bridge of the Resolute. He had seen many fights in his long career, but nothing like this. His people were fighting with a fury he had never witnessed before. They were not just soldiers following orders. They were warriors defending their family. Admiral, Danny called out. The Corvith fleet is breaking apart. Many ships are trying to retreat. Peters nodded. Do not let them escape. Every ship that runs away is a ship that will come back later. End this today. The human fleet pursued the fleeing Corvith without mercy. One by one, the enemy ships were destroyed or captured. Some surrendered, hoping for mercy. They received justice instead. On the planet, the Corvith troops who had landed found themselves cut off from support. Human Marines dropped from the sky in assault pods, joining the Valori defenders. Sergeant Carl Jennings led the first wave, his boots hitting the ground running. Helen Marsh, he shouted. Where's Commander Marsh? Helen pushed through the crowd and grabbed his arm. I am here. I am Helen Marsh. Jennings smiled, a real smile full of warmth. Ma'am, Admiral Peters sends his regards. We are here to take you home. Helen shook her head. Not yet. The Valori shelters are under attack. There are children in the caves. We have to save them first. Jennings did not argue. He gathered his Marines and followed Helen toward the sound of fighting. The Corvith soldiers were strong and cruel, but they were not prepared for the fury of humans protecting the innocent. The battle for the caves lasted 3 hours. When it was over, every Corvith soldier was dead or captured. The children were safe. The Valori wept with relief. Elder Saranis found Helen standing over the bodies of their enemies. She was covered in dirt and blood, her human face hard with exhaustion. You saved us, the old Valori said. Your people saved us. Helen looked at him with tired eyes. You saved me first. We did not forget kindness, Elder. Ever. In orbit, the last Corvith ship surrendered. The battle was over. Humanity had won its first war among the stars, and they had done it for a species they had never met. All because that species had done one simple thing. They had saved one human. The smoke was still rising from the battlefield when Admiral Frank Peters stepped onto the surface of the Valori homeworld. He wore his full uniform, metal shining in the light of the alien sun. Behind him came a line of officers, their faces serious but proud. Elder Saranis waited at the bottom of the landing ramp, surrounded by the members of his council. The old Valori looked tired and fragile, but his eyes were bright with emotion. Beside him stood Kira, and next to Kira was Helen Marsh, still wearing the torn clothes she had fought in. Peters stalked in front of Saranis and did something that surprised everyone. He bowed low, sign of deep respect among humans. "Elder Saranis," he said, "on behalf of all humanity, I thank you. You saved one of our people when you had nothing to gain and everything to lose. You stood against an empire of slavers because you believed it was right. There are no words big enough to express what that means to us." Saranis blinked, clearly moved. "We did only what our hearts told us to do. We could not let an innocent being die when we had the power to save her." Peters straightened up. "And that is exactly why humanity will stand beside you from this day forward. The Valori will never face danger alone again. This is not a promise from a government or a military. This is a promise from one species to another. You are our friends now, and we protect our friends." The Valori around them began to murmur with amazement. They had spent so long afraid, hiding from the powerful empires that ruled the galaxy. The idea that someone would protect them was almost too wonderful to believe. Helen stepped forward and embraced Admiral Peters. She had never met him before, but he felt like family. All of them did. Every human who had crossed the stars to save her felt like a brother or sister. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for coming." Peters held her gently. "We would have come for any of our people. You know that. I do now." Over the next few days, the real work began. Sergeant Carl Jennings led teams of Marines to board every Corvette transport ship in the system. What they found inside made hardened soldiers weep. Thousands of prisoners filled the cargo holds. They came from dozens of different species, all of them taken from their homes and meant for the slave markets. Many were sick and weak, barely alive after months of captivity. But among them were over 300 humans. Jennings personally freed each one. He looked into their eyes and told them the same words again and again. "You are free now. You are going home. No one will hurt you ever again." One young woman grabbed his arm as he cut her chains. "Who are you? Why did you come?" Jennings smiled at her. "We are humans, and we do not leave our people behind." The freed prisoners were brought to medical ships where doctors worked day and night to heal them. Many had been held captive for years. They had lost hope. They had believed they would die in chains. Now, suddenly, they were surrounded by their own kind, being treated with kindness and care. Helen visited the medical ships often. She talked to the freed prisoners, listened to their stories, held their hands while they cried. She understood their pain better than anyone. She had been alone and afraid too, drifting in that escape pod, waiting for death. She knew what it meant to be saved. On the Valori homeworld, a celebration was held that lasted 3 days. Humans and Valori danced together, shared food, told stories. The two species were so different in body, but they found they were not so different in heart. Kira and Helen spent most of the celebration together. They sat on the same hill where they used to watch the Corvette ships, but now the sky was clear and filled with stars. "What will you do now?" Kira asked. "Will you return to Earth?" Helen thought about it for a long moment. "I do not know. Earth is my home, but this place has become home too. You saved my life, Kira. You and your people. I cannot just forget that." Kira leaned her feathered head against Helen's shoulder. "You could stay. We would welcome you. Maybe I will. Or maybe I will go back and forth. Admiral Peters says there will be regular ships traveling between our worlds now. We are going to be neighbors. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars appear one by one. After everything they had been through, peace felt strange. Strange but wonderful. Far away, in the depths of space, the survivors of the Corvette fleet carried word of what had happened back to their empire. The story spread quickly. The humans had come with hundreds of ships. They had destroyed a Corvette armada in hours. They had freed all the prisoners. And they had done it all because one alien species had saved one human life. The Corvette Dominion had ruled through fear for centuries. But now their subjects began to ask questions. If the humans could defeat them, maybe others could too. If one act of kindness could bring such powerful allies, maybe kindness was stronger than cruelty. Within a year, the Dominion collapsed. Rebellions spread across their territory. Species that had been conquered for generations rose up and demanded freedom. The slave markets were shut down. The prisoners were released, and at the heart of every rebellion, the same story was told. The humans had come. They had come for one of their own, and they had brought justice with them. Admiral Peters returned to Earth as a hero, but he always said the same thing in every interview. We did not do anything special. We did what humans have always done. We helped our friends. We protected our family. We never forgot who stood by us when we needed them. Helen Marsh became the first human ambassador to the Valori. She spent half her time on their world and half on Earth, building a bridge between two civilizations that had been strangers just months before. She never stopped being amazed by the Valori, by their kindness and wisdom. And they never stopped being amazed by her, by the fire and determination that seemed to burn in every human heart. Kira became a leader among her people, using her experience to help the Valori adapt to their new place in the galaxy. She and Helen remained close for the rest of their lives. Two souls from different worlds who had found each other in the darkness. Years later, when historians wrote about the events of that time, they called it the beginning of a new age. They said it was the moment humanity announced itself to the galaxy, not as conquerors or victims, but as protectors. But Helen always said it differently. She said it was simply the story of one small act of kindness and the ripples it sent across the stars. The Valari saved one human, and in return, humanity came to claim all their people back. And in doing so, they changed the universe forever. The lesson was simple, and it spread to every corner of the galaxy. If you harm a human, they will remember. They will come for you, no matter how far you run. But if you help a human, if you show them kindness when they are lost and alone, they will remember that too. They will cross oceans of stars to stand beside you. They will fight armies for you. They will move heaven and earth to make sure you are never alone again. That is who humans are. That is who they have always been. And the galaxy was just beginning to understand.